Hello and welcome to Global Morning. A beautiful Saturday, I must tell you, where the sun looks like it's gonna come out, but we're still we're still watching, and it's really hot for me here. I don't know what it's like around where you are. My name is Aniti Patrick, and of course, it's Global Morning, where we bring you amazing discussion segments, amazing dishes for you to also join us and have breakfast, and also bring you newspaper headlines. And I won't be doing that alone because I have my co-anchor with me in the studio in Preston, Mukhtar Kasim. Hello, Mukhtar.
Hello, Annie. It's a beautiful morning, and you're looking good as always. And the weather, like you said, is hot and just there.
It's dilly-dally.
It's dilly-dally.
So
but I don't even know where it's headed at the moment. Well, of course, we are hoping for the best at all times, and I hope all our audience are having a great morning, and it's going to be an amazing show, as it always is.
Always amazing on Global Morning. Like Mukhtar, so he's not looking bad himself. He finds a way of complimenting when I do the colors.
Because I don't know, I think I should start to call you the lady of colors, because the way you combine the colors, they're always coming out very nice on you every time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, like you said, it's Saturday. We have a whole lot lined up for you. Discussions you don't want to miss, starting from our economy to politics to
and of course agriculture,
what's happening in our food sector, how we getting something to eat. But a lot of people are strong. I look at those at the very underserved communities, how they're surviving following the issue of insecurity, the build up to the 2017 general elections, the government policies, all of those concerns. I always wonder how people cope around all those things.
Honestly, it's really concerning. I'm talking about economy. You saw that the World Bank has now said Nigeria has even had a higher number of poor people, over 120 million people. Even though we have got gains in terms of our inflation rates easing, but it's not translated to people doing better. We've seen more people fall into poverty. So that's actually a worrying concern. And of course, poverty is characterized most times with food insecurity, with hunger and starvation across the land. So that's a worrying concern. And our agri sector is the sector that is tasked with giving us answers to that particular riddle that we're faced with.
Okay, so while we're looking at all those things, let's quickly turn our focus and start with what the day is lined up for us with our newspaper review segments, and then we'll tell you what's happening on the front covers of the paper. Please stay with us. And of course, we have the dailies, a whole lot of stories making the rounds in the dailies. We will start with we have the Vanguard, we have the Nation, we have the Punch, we have the Daily Trust, of course, like I always like to go into because they have the infographics, a whole lot of stories making the rounds. And of course, Mukhtar, let's start with the Nation.
Of course, the Nation newspaper here is having this very big story. It says, ADC crisis, MAC faction targets PRP. Others amidst uncertainty, and a few riders are here. One of them says FHC decides leaders' fate Monday. Here's Gombe suit on Tuesday, with a second rider that says confusion shrouds national convention slated for April 14. Of course, that's about the ADC crisis, which has been making the rounds for a number of weeks now, and this is another dimension, and we hope to see that it becomes one that is resolved, so we could have a healthy democracy, because like we always like to say, what is a democracy without a thriving opposition to keep the government on their toes?
Very true, Mukhtar. We always have to have the opposition party. It makes it very engaging, and you see the competitiveness where people have choices to make, of course. And of course, we have other stories there above the mass. Excuse me, head there where it says INEC on the left right-hand corner there, it says INEC postpones voters' revalidation till after 2027 elections. And then with the right that says, Amobiton disowns X account. And that story is on page 5.
If you take just by the left hand, it says Nigeria will achieve stable electricity to power growth. And that is the President, Tinubu, speaking. With a rider that says commissions IPP, roads, bridges in Bayelsa State. Details are on page 6 of the Nation's newspaper.
Okay, so let's come down a bit. We see a lot of pictures there, but below that picture story, just by the left-hand side, there says, my ex-deputy plotted to topple me, says Kanu governor. That story is on page 6 there.
And next story says, terrorism court convicts 386 in Abuja 4-day trial. With a writer that says, ex-senator candidate bags 10 years jail term for selling fuel to Boko Haram members. Details you find on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper.
And of course, there you have where it talks about, there's a picture of a woman there where it says, I cried in my room when Oni's wives were deserting him, elder sister. That story is on page 25.
And let's go below that story. You find one that says, deaf autistic girls battle unwanted pregnancies as randy men go berserk, with details on page 11 of the Nation's newspaper.
Well, that has to do with humanitarian angle, and it feels really, really...
It's not a pleasant one.
It's not a pleasant one at all. Well, that's about the Nation newspaper. Let's quickly look at other stories making the rounds on the front page cover of the Vanguard. Saturday Vanguard newspaper has its own lead story that comes differently. Before the nameplate there, I just want to start with that tiny line story where it comes and it talks about the pain Nigerians are going through at this moment. It says, Bloody Holy Week, 147 killed in Nigeria. That's the report there, where it does more like a future write-up.
It's more like a write-up, X-raying our insecurity and the rate of people that have lost their lives in this particular week, and it's not a pleasant one, Anita. Okay. Well, let's go below that and see the big story. It says, drug addiction as the kicker. Youth hit hard as 14.3 million Nigerians consumed illicit drugs in 1 year, with riders that say 1 in 5 youth affected. Survivors regret, families lament, with a third rider that says addiction spreading like wildfire, and that is Dr. Ayonkola speaking. This particular story is going to be found on page 10 of the Saturday Vanguard newspaper.
Well, lead to that story, or back up to that story, they're still talking about the issue around drugs. There you see a picture of Charlie Boy there, where he said, I lived wild, did drugs, survived cancer, now have a new life. And of course, you have a writer that says, if my father were alive, unleashes his darkest secrets rather, in his book. That's 999. That's I guess that's what the book is titled.
That's the title of the book.
999. That story is on page 22. There, where Charlie Boy is also telling his story of how drugs is also something that he had to
struggle with, and of course we are happy that he is a better person, and young people should look towards him and see that, like he has said, he has seen it and done all and told you that drugs is not the way to go. And away from that story, let's go below it. You see a story that says, Delta is court no more last hope of the common man. That is Okoma people crying out, with a writer that says, our leaders detained for 2 years without trial. And this particular story's detail is on page 13 of the Saturday Vanguard.
Well, a whole lot there. We have just beside that, it says terrorism there. That story there, it talks about ex-senatorial candidates bags 10-year jail term for selling petrol to Boko Haram. That story is on page 7. I think this has to do with looking for those sponsoring.
Yes, terrorism financiers
and all that. And so if this can keep up coming up, I think Nigerians will begin to trust the system and see what value or the safety measures, and then the fact that people are held accountable for what they do.
Especially people who are seeming to have influence. For a person to be a senatorial candidate, he has maybe a level of influence, and then he has gotten himself in this. So people like this that are put behind bars would teach a lesson to other people who have the same motives, and that's a pleasant one. So away from that particular story, let's go just by the right hand corner. You see a story that says NBA warns against judicial interference in party affairs, with details on page 4 of the Saturday Vanguard newspaper.
Well, let's go above the nameplates there, just by the left-hand side there. It says 2027, opposition eyes united front against APC. And of course, you have the internal party crisis back and forth there, where with the riders that says SDP and MPP vow to field strong presidential candidates there. So also we have the PRP, ADC leaders meet in Abuja. Well, the opposition parties are set.
They seem to be trying to get their acts in order
together and see if they can have a common front, a united front, which I think will give them an edge.
Of course, and if they are able to unite, then that's the edge, because what we've been seeing before now is that they've been in disarray and they've not been able to get their acts in order. But if they do that, they might have a chance against 2027. Who knows?
For me, whether they have a chance, no, but it makes it more engaging.
Competitive,
yes,
of course.
So Nigerians have options and would want to go for who they feel is the best bet for them.
Exactly. Let's stay with politics. A related story here says ADC crisis, court slates Monday for judgment in suit against MAC-led executives, with details on page 4 of the Saturday Vanguard. Of course, this is a related story, and we've seen the back and forth. So let's see how the court order and the court process on Monday would shape the proceeding going forward at ET.
Okay, so just by the right-hand side, just beside that story there, we see where it says from emergency interventions to economic lifelines, where it says how Abdulrazak is transforming Kwara. Oludodo speaking there, and that story is on page 19. Well, from political drama to...
it's been a lot of spice, politics, human angle, and all of that.
Well, that's it on that particular paper, Saturday Vanguard. Let's quickly turn our focus and see what's happening with the Saturday Punch newspaper. Saturday Punch newspaper comes in its own different dimension of story, and of course, let's start from the top there. Just I like what the Punch puts it. Everything is just below its nameplate there, and then it leads with this particular very will I call it chaotic?
Disturbing to say the least, honestly, Anita.
Where it says cancer fraud, influencer blessing CEO in fresh trouble. Well, that story is there on page 4.
No, I think the story is quite disturbing for me. Is why would you use something that's so sensitive as cancer to joke? Like, it's not a pleasant one, and we just hope that this particular story and this saga comes to an end, and whoever it is culpable is made to face the wrath of the law. And away from this particular story, stories around insecurity, or let's still stick with the human angle story by the right here. It says marriage doesn't favor women, and that is Yvonne Jagade speaking.
Okay, so I think she's speaking from her perspective.
From a personal point of view.
Personal point of view. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. But the thing is, maybe another thought could be she could be speaking from the cultural norms and how some don't find a balance. True. And so we need to pick up a couple.
But you know, like how they say every marriage is different.
It's different. So, that's why I said she's speaking from her point of view. And she could probably be looking at some things that were challenging
from what she has seen. Certainly.
Well, that's it. So you can pick up, find out.
Whatever details is there, you can pick up and find out, certainly.
So let's look at stories still sticking to the insecurity challenges that we have in Mutara.
The big story here says how terrorists overran military base, killed General Brima. Soldiers are there speaking with riders that say survivors recount midnight terror, lucky escape, Tinubu Lord's bravery. Another rider says 49 villagers, 10 bandits killed in fresh attacks. Not a pleasant one, Anita.
Okay, so that's been a terrible one where we're saying that General Brahma being killed there. It's been a whole lot of talks here and there around the issue of insecurity. Honestly. But let's go down there. There's something still tagged to insecurity, and but this sounds a bit different. It says ghost towns of Kwara. And then you see a building and you're wondering what's ghost about this. It says how banditry empty thriving communities.
Honestly, these ghost towns because people have been made to flee their home just to find safety somewhere. And look at how that place is deserted. And that's not what we want for our society. We need to see thriving communities. We need to see people grow and thrive basically, and so that's not a pleasant one. But let's move away from that story and tell you a story here in the middle that says, married neighbor snatched my husband, sent my 17-year-old son to jail. And that's a woman there lamenting.
A lot of human angle stories today, and there beside that story on the right hand side, it says tears, anger as Plateau buries 8 family members. That's really heartbreaking. Really heartbreaking.
Really heartbreaking, Anita. It's not a pleasant one. Let's go below that story. It says, inside Lagos health centers where mothers pay 5,000 for childbirth. Why should they have
5,000?
Because we've heard that in government hospitals, those things are supposed to be provided for free, but here we go, and people are paying for them.
Well, that's the reason why we tell you stories making around, so you pick up a copy
Exactly,
and find out
why.
what's really happening around you in your neighborhood. Let's quickly switch our focus and look at what's happening with the Weekend Trust. The Weekend Trust newspaper has, like I always like to talk about, the infographics. It has a way of telling the story around a whole lot of concerns or questions like it's been asked here.
Yes.
And let's start with this lead story with the infographics there. You see a transformer, like what, like a transformer, a moving train.
That's a transformer.
But it's created in a way of a train.
Of course, that's the infographics.
Where you have all the horns, where the exhaust going out, and you know the
smoke and all of that. Yes.
And it just describes, it says electricity, and then you have the picture of the president, if I'm not mistaken, and then I'm trying to understand what that is. Is the transformer bleeding money, or
no? We are pumping so much money.
Pumping.
Yeah,
okay.
So much money into the transformer.
And then the major lead story there says questions 3.3 trillion naira power bailouts can't answer. So these are questions why Nigerians.
Honestly, it's a very big ask, Anita, because if you are pumping 3.3 trillion naira into this transformer, why are we not seeing electricity? That's a very big question, and the concerned stakeholders and Nigerians are telling them to give us answers, because we need to see positive results, because 3.3 trillion is not a small amount of money.
It is not
more than enough to fix our energy crisis, but it is not. So what is the problem? Where is the disconnect? That's the question that this particular story is asking.
That needs a lot of answer.
But away from that, let's go above that particular story to the left-hand corner, where it says, from privilege to politics, elite children in 2027 race, with details on page 27. We've seen a lot of elite children still going
I saw a lot of them coming out to say they're coming out to run for offices. And you know, for someone, let's look at all of these things that has to do with purchasing of forms and all that. Someone who really genuinely wants to do that, so will also be thinking twice, because he's looking at the funds. Can I afford this? But like he says, elites. But my concern is not just running for the office; it's delivering the democracy, the mandate of people, and also ensuring that people enjoy the facts of what you've enjoyed over time. And we hope that plays out well.
Yes, and I've heard other people say, why is it always elitism? When will it get to the common man? But then this is a democracy, and everybody is entitled to contest. But the only issue is they've requested for level playing field, where every candidate, in spite of their lineage, can have equal opportunities to contest for elections. So hopefully we see that happen. And away from that story, just beside it in the middle, it says, rainy season, battles before farmers. Details on page 23 of the Weekend newspaper. Of course, our conversation will also look
we'll talk about all of those things and how that. And then we had this, just beside that, we also talked about this, was one of the papers already says INEC postpones voter revalidation, and that's on page 22. Let's come down to the story just below the infographics there, where it says how stray bullets killed my 14-year-old niece, and that's on page 17. Lots of human angle stories, which is something we need to really pay attention to.
Certainly.
And see how people tend to enjoy democracy, safety, security measures, and lives not being cut short just like that.
Because this particular stray bullet story, said it happened in Maiduguri, where they alleged that soldiers were celebrating and then the bullet hits the lady. It's not something that we want to see happen.
Yes.
So we just hope that it is something that we have people brought to book, arrests have been made, and we want to see a conclusive end to that particular story. But let's move away and tell you another story just below that story. It says, general elections, the ADC pushback. That story is on page 8 actually, of the Weekend Trust newspaper, and of course, it has to do with politics and all the permutations and calculations ahead of 2027.
Well, we're expecting that, but there's an interesting picture there just beside that story where you see
ADC.
citizens, pushing the boss and saying this boss has to move.
And that is the boss of the ADC, actually. So let's see how, if they are able to get that emotion.
If they push you, you push back. That's what I see from this. Whether the car like it or not, you
have to move.
You need to move.
But 2027 is not waiting for anybody, so we can't wait for you.
We need to move. That's what it simply means. Well, that's it on that particular story or that page of the front cover of the Weekend Trust. Let's quickly turn our focus and look at the Leadership Weekend. Leadership Weekend newspaper leads with its own story, and it says we should a different story basically.
Of course, leadership here, it says 13 steps we took before taking over ADC. That is David Mark Group speaking, and it has two riders. One says Bala Gombe's signature not forged. Court here suit April 14. A second rider here says our party won't field candidates above 55 years, and that is the factional and chairman of the ADC speaking there, Gombe. And the particular details of this story you will find on page 4 of the Saturday Weekend Leadership newspaper, that is. And that's, of course, above the 2027 elections, all the dramas that has been playing out in the ADC. But we can move away from that story and talk a bit of business. And that is Dangote here speaking. Says Dangote remains shining example of African enterprise. That's actually President Tinubu there, lauding the exploit of Dangote refinery. And away from that story, let's go above the nameplate, and you see a story by the right-hand corner that says court jails 386 terrorists in 4 days. And by the left, there's another story that says double loss as the kicker. Benue ex-council chair, wife, die 4 days apart, buried the same day. That's a very sad one, if you ask me.
Very sad one.
And below that story, rather, a story here says Kwara governor mourns as bandit kill 5 forest guards, constitutes security committee. The details of this story on page 20 of the Weekend Leadership newspaper. Let's go below the picture story where we see pictures of Atiku, David Mark, Peter Obi, and the rest of them, and tell you away from that politics that by the left-hand corner it says man gets life jail term for raping 9-year-old. That's not a pleasant one.
What was he thinking about? What he's going for a 9-year-old?
Oh, 9-year-old. Honestly, he did.
Infidels that that's the right word.
I understand how he feels, and yet
really, it's not 9 year. What are you looking for?
Some people might tell you that the life sentence is even a less one, but of course, it's well earned. It's not a pleasant one.
I should not even see that man.
Because I know you're going to give him some really...
Oh my God. All right. So let's see other stories. Just beside that, there it says Nigeria's blue economy, right? It holds $3 trillion potential. That's Oyetola speaking there. And that's raised on page 9. And just beside the same story, the next story beside that there, it says 12 Chibok survivors to graduate from University May 9. That's some
very pleasant. Very
that's
pleasant.
some cherry news to hear when you see things like that. It's really...
They've defied their circumstances, defied the environment, and are able to achieve this much success. So that's a very big kudos to them on that particular feat. So
also we have where it says Bennett Sheikh's attack. We have DHQ confirms killing of Brigadier General Brema and 3 others. That's the story we talked about earlier. With other
very
papers.
Unpleasant.
Not a pleasant one at all. Issue of insecurity giving us lots of concern there, and we hope that there's a soft landing in the long run.
Hopefully that's our hope, and we hope that the military, in spite of the challenges, would overcome all of this insecurity.
Okay, insecurity, whether you like it or not, someday
It's going to be history.
It's going to be history.
Certainly.
And that's what we look forward to. Well, that's the size of the newspaper review segment, of course, where we've brought you stories making the headlines on the front cover, from insecurity to politics to human angle stories, a lot of economy of course, and why we need to see how a lot needs to be done, questions needs to be answered when it comes to the power sector, because still a lot of money being pumped in, but
no results.
That's the question that has been asked. So with that we quickly turn our focus and look at the discussion segments. Please stay with us.
Wake up with Global Morning, your daily guide to what's happening and making the rounds.
We delve into headlines, newspaper reviews, spot-on analysis, policies, current events, real talk, real issues that affect us all.
From the latest trends to the debates, every topic, every angle, Global Morning is where it all starts.
Global Morning,
For the latest issues,
always on point.
Watch Global Morning Monday to Friday at 7 a.m., Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Global Television.
Hello guys, this is to specially welcome you to this episode of Taste and Texture, and it promises to be as engaging.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Usoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust a multi-platform news broadcast, real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
Global TV News, accurate and unbiased. I'm Uyi Agmofwebe.
It's good to have you. Because we said we're going to be looking at the economy, the issue of agriculture. That's what we're going to start with agriculture. One of the major staple ingredients we use because most of us cannot do without this particular ingredients when it comes to making our food. I know some of us don't even want to see it, but it is one discussion we always want to talk about and look at how the farmers have been surviving, how they've coped with having this particular ingredient. And then the farmers have also raised concerns to where and how this comes to play for them. That's one value chain we cannot do without when it comes to the economy of food security, or basically the conversations so we're going to look at the Nigerians onion farming stakeholders, where they talk about the issues, the challenges, and despite all of this, they find a way of finding a balance and getting results in the long run. Well, let's give a breakdown to all of this, and also tie this to the women farmers, the smallholder farmers, basically, because they cannot do without the women. Okay, that sticks the fact that this conversation is also tied to contributions and the role of women in shaping societies and economies across the world. Well, in Nigeria's agricultural value chain, women play a critical role from cultivation to processing and to marketing of farm produce. Well, one sector where this participation is significant is that farming of onion. Onion farming is one that sometimes you may look at it that is not part of the discussion, but it's not something you should throw away, but it's a very critical value chain of food that we always use across the different dimension. What we cook, a lot of us have a way of find how to make onion very attractive, and some people say, I don't even like the smell of onion, don't even bring it, I don't want to see it inside my food, grate it into tiny pieces. But all of that is how they want it to run. But let's say that Nigeria remains one of the largest onion producers in West Africa, yet farmers say they continue to face enormous challenges ranging from insecurity, logistics, bottlenecks, climate concerns, and the alarming issue of bandits allegedly demanding payments from farmers to access their farmlands. Well, Mutal, there's a whole lot of discussion around.
Did I hear anybody bad-mouthing my favorite onion?
Well, maybe not really bad-mouthing. Some people,
like you said, some people don't like to see it in their food. They be like, shred it to the. I just want to hear the flavor of it, but for me, I like to see it spread across the food.
When you're picking some lumps, you just some people put it in their salad.
I do that.
Okay.
Ironically, I do.
So we'll find out how interesting or how that is very important. You cannot do. But interestingly, this comes at a time where stakeholders say onion production output is witnessing a boost. So we now ask the question, what explains this paradox of the increasing production amid growing challenges? Well, good enough, we have joining us to unpack this and highlights the realities faced by farmers is the president of the Onion Producers, Processors and Markets Association of Nigeria, in person of Mr. Samu Aliu Isa. He's joining us virtually. Isa, it's good to have you join us. How have you been?
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Great, it's good to have you. Just finally, we're happy to speak to this.
Yeah, we have been running up and down because of our trade dispute with Ghana, so it has not been easy for me in the past 1 week. But thank God we have resolved it.
Interesting that you've resolved that. So you're going to walk us through the challenges. Let's start with that basically before we get. What was it like? Because I know when we had a conversation, when I met you, when we talked about it, we looked at the overview of Nigerian onion industry, and he talked about the broader picture, and we'll look at the significance of onion farming to Nigeria's agricultural economy and how many farmers are currently involved in this sector. So let's get your perspective to that, and then you run us through to how you're able to resolve the issue or the crisis within the Ghana that you just mentioned.
Yeah. Thank you very much. The Nigerian onion subsector, the onion value chain is growing very big. Like according to the FAO, where the production aspect alone is valued at 1.17 trillion naira, just the production aspect of it. And the production is growing significantly. I think we have rise from producing 2.1 million metric tons to 2.2 million metric tons. You know, onion is a special vegetable, like we used to say. We have a slogan for it that there is no household that does not consume onion because of its medicinal purpose, and it is used to cure or manage diseases of diabetes, obesity, cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's diseases, and the rest. Outside the flavor it adds to our food. So the onion value chain is thriving very well in Nigeria, and Nigeria happens to be the largest exporter of onion to other West African countries, including Niger, Togo, Burkina Faso, Benin Republic, Ghana, Cotonou, even up to Liberia. When you go to the northeast aspect, we export to Cameroon, Chad, Central Africa, Gabon, even around that, even up to Mauritania. So a lot is going on in the onion value chain, and production is on the increase, except for the cost of production. If you look at the cost of input of recent, you will know that farmers are finding it difficult to break even, because most often than not, you see that the output, the value of your output cannot match the cost of production, not alone for you to even break even. Farmers are really complaining about the price, low price. Currently, we are in the harvest season of onion. We are in the glut season of onion, and a bag of onion is around 30,000 naira, 30 to 35,000 naira. And the farmers are complaining that how many bags will they sell to purchase one bag of fertilizer? And that bag is around 130 kg. So I think in that aspect, government need to do more. Government need to come with a kind of subsidy mechanism to be able to reduce the price of fertilizer and other inputs, so that the farmers can be able to afford those inputs to produce, to go into production, so that at the end of the day, the value of they are getting from the output will be able to outweigh the cost of production, or if not, even match it. But as we are speaking, I don't think that the value of the output we are getting is matching the cost of production. It's at the expense of the farmers. I've said it in different platforms and forums that food is a necessity, is the basic need of life. It's the basic right, the fundamental human right. I think access to food is number one. It's number one. So I don't think government should jeopardize that right. They should make subsidy available. They should make facilities available, finance and everything available for farmers, because a lot of financial institutions are shying away from making farmers to access loans or to access some facility, because of the risky nature of the agricultural sector. So